Okay, and we're back, everybody. This is part two of a conversation my good buddy Brian and I were having actually weeks ago now about ICHRA. Brian is the Vice President, Individual Medicare Sales at the Cason Group. Everybody who's listening knows my relationship with the Cason Group, Benefit Profiles relationship with the Cason Group is very strong. And they are our ICHRA expert, and Brian is obviously on the forefront of that. So, Brian, thank you for joining.
Yeah, man, glad to be here.
It's great to have you back. When last we spoke, we had kind of talked about how the Cason Group utilizes two TPAs, Sherco and Zizzle, and when you decide what's a good fit in the quoting process. A lot's happened since then. We finished our conversation really starting to talk about staffing, because what I brought up, and I think maybe you talked about it too, was when you write an ICHRA, let's say 6-1, it renews that 1-1. So staffing is an interesting business challenge. So 3 questions really, and that's pretty typical, and you'll take it from wherever you want. Is there anything you want to add on the TPA side? We can get into that later. Anything you want to bring us up to date on in the last month and a half? Or do you want to jump right into staffing?
No, we can come back to the TPA utilization and maybe which one makes sense where. I think I've got some appropriate analogies this go around, where last time I was grasping at straws a little bit. We'll come back to the staffing piece too. I think just to level set, it's been a bit of a whirlwind first 5 months of the year. Here we are nearing the end of May, probably the busiest first half of the year I've had personally and professionally, and a lot of that around ICHRA. I mean, I think since the last time we spoke, I've been to 4 or 5 sort of official ICHRA events, whether it's a carrier related hosted ICHRA luncheon, a podcast recording, or webinar from the Cason Group perspective. We hosted an ICHRA premier conference as the Cason Group and brought in 20 plus top national group advisors from McGriff, USI, sort of an overnight golf event, raise awareness, educational CE training. Just got back from a national ICHRA conference in Boulder as a speaking presenter on a panelist out there for a couple of days. So all that to say, it's been a super busy first half of the year, but really a lot of it fueled by ICHRA. And from my perspective, and probably said this in the first episode, I think the Cason Group is pretty well positioned as an expert in the marketplace and pretty well positioned from a business perspective with great group benefits distribution, individual medical expertise. I sit in the position where I'm really trying to strike while the iron's hot, so to speak, to capitalize on what people say in the industry as the front end of the bell curve in terms of adoption. I feel like the Cason Group is in the middle of the bell curve and neck deep in it. So I'm trying to capitalize on our position, if I'm being frank. So I'm out talking about it and trying to engage with as many people as possible in conjunction with all of our sales reps, group benefits, and IM to make sure that our partners understand we can help here and are, I think, extremely knowledgeable in the space. So that's the past couple of months to sort of bring us back up to speed in the conversation. I'm happy to keep rolling and pick up on the staffing and the platform.
Yeah, you were invited to speak on this panel, you did, and that's very cool. Were you speaking toward the kind of someone, would they ask you, because you guys have real world experience kind of enrolling or also working with the TP? So why were you invited and what were you talking about specifically there?
The privilege to sit on what they call, there was a bunch of different panels, tech panels, TPA carrier panel, and then I sat on the expert broker panel. Although I'm not technically a broker, we certainly work closely with the broker, oftentimes as the broker on behalf of the broker, and then as the enrollment firm. So it was a mix on the panel. It was a representative from Hub International, a representative from Epic, who really sort of represented the broker side of the equation and the relationship manager. And then it was me and representing the Cason Group, and then this other firm, iPlanRx, which is basically an enrollment firm as well. So that was the context of the expert panelists, and really trying to give feedback to the audience on a wide range of things. The reason to use a platform, some of the best features of a platform, common pitfalls of a platform, and then overall experience in the space, what to look out for, where are we heading, what's lacking and what's needed. So it was a host of things that we talked about, but speaking to a room of 200 folks, which was, I was surprised at this, a sold out event in Colorado hosted by Zizzle and Ambetter being the largest national ACA carrier in the country. They expected 100 people and it was a sold out 200-person event, carrier partners, TPAs, as well as employee benefits brokers. So that was super exciting to be able to share on that. But we really talked about the industry at a broad level. And again, pros, cons, common pitfalls.
Well, what a great opportunity. So talk about enrolling these things. Let's pick it up. An insurance agent in West Michigan quotes a group with you guys. We decide Zizzle is the way to go. And they're like, okay, here's 150 people. How are we going to get these people educated? Talk about real world, how Cason Group helps with that. And then how do you staff for that in the fall?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to be transparent real quick, and I'll come to that, like I was thinking all along for the past couple of years that we'd leverage group benefits distribution relationships and individual medical plan and space expertise from my division to capitalize on ICHRA and drive volume in the way of individual policies, which volume as an FMO, which is what I consider myself is one of the keys to the game. And so I thought this is a natural solution. Come to find out, one of the things that I was missing, and I'm like, hey, we have an internal call center. I've got people that can absolutely help individuals choose the right plan. The big component that I was probably unaware of in the enrollment and educational side, which we do have on the group benefits side, and they've been doing it for 10 years, is kickoff calls, implementation calls, coordination calls. So we quoted the group, Midwest broker, Michigan broker sells the case. What happens next? That's where I was probably lacking in my information. Lots of kickoff calls and planning to get to open enrollment. So we've got our benefits education team that's got a benefit coordinator, a benefit counselor, and then an enrollment team. And that team works heavily in the time leading up to enrollment to ensure that group benefits broker, employer, business owner, or HR person is fully aware of all the things that are coming leading into enrollment. What's the transition look like from group benefits to ICHRA? How many employees do you think we're going to engage with? What's our time frame? What's the environment that we engage with? How do we engage with the employees leading into enrollment? All that stuff, super important. So that's a component of it that we handle soup to nuts with the broker. And then once we've determined the enrollment windows and handled all the pre-com and conditioning, it is a 1 to 2 week open enrollment window where our benefits education team and the enrollment individuals are one-on-one with the individuals inside of that employer group, help assisting with plan selection. And not everybody is going to need assistance. Plenty of people are going to enroll on platform through self-enrollment, just like you can do on Navigator or Plan Source or Amazon when you buy something. That's the way these TPA tech vendors have set up ICHRA for self-selection. But there's going to be a good 25 to 50% of the enrollment population that desire assistance. Hey, I want to talk to somebody about the plan I'm selecting because there's now 70 options in my open window, and I need to make sure this hospital's in, this doctor's in, these drugs are covered, right? On and on the list goes. And so that's really where the employee education and enrollment stuff lands most importantly, right? It's setting it up and delivering. And then we can get to this post-enrollment. There's a whole other host of issues and opportunities to serve where there's no integrations between the platforms, no APIs, no 834s, no EDIs. This is not Navigator. This is not Plan Source. So my team is behind the scenes taking all of the enrollment data and hand keying applications and payment information on all the employees directly to the carriers. And if it's a 150 life ICHRA case and it's one state, they could have selected plans from 5 to 10 carriers. If it's multi-state and employees are across a multi-state footprint, it could be 20 carriers, right? So that presents a lot of, I'm going to call it manual labor issue on the back end to ensure they're enrolled, they get their ID card, They can fill their scripts. They can see their doctor. That's really, if I'm sitting on a panel giving feedback, which I was, as I mentioned, that's one of the most significant points of feedback given. Where the carriers and the platforms, but I'm going to lay it on the carriers. None of them have any integrations. They're all trying to figure it out. And meanwhile, folks like us and brokers that choose to do it on their own are left with the bag of manual enrollments in the individual plans. Does that make sense?
It does. And I was going to make a comment, what kind of halfway through your last little segment is like, it sounds like a voluntary enrollment. It sounds very much like what you do. If I worked with Connor, for example, and we set up a 300-person group for a voluntary enrollment in an educational environment, the front end sounds very much like that. But then you come through and say, but not only that, because if you do an involuntary enrollment, critical illness, accident, bowel life, you just put it on Navigator or Plan Source and
all the feeds go direct to the carrier.
Connect it either or do a census enrollment, send it over to Guardian, we're good.
Correct.
But now, and we talked about this in the last podcast, you had people actually, you have to go in those, not the marketplace, but the individual health insurance carrier sites and enroll those people. I mean, it's so manual. That's why, if you don't mind bringing the audience again, reminding them from the last podcast, now that the dust is settled, how many members total did you guys enroll or touch this past fall? Call it.
So 3,500 to 4,000.
Okay, so that's 4,000 people you had to key in. Am I hearing that correctly?
That's correct. And basically a week and a half period.
Oh my God.
I had 5 to 6 people full-time for 2 weeks entering applications. It wasn't 400 carriers, but there's basically 400 individual carriers in the market nationally. And, we wrote a 3,000 eligible life case and enrolled 800 people across 13 different states and probably however many carriers. So each carrier, a different process, a different nuance, a different app entry process, a different initial binder payment and auto pay setup. So, it's not like click a button and the person's enrolled. It really takes a little bit of time and labor to do it. While it's administrative, it's important, right? If you miss it, you fat finger something, and miss it,
right.
then a couple of weeks later or a month later, one of those employees is contacting our office going, what gives? I can't fill, I can't get my insulin. Right. It's crazy. So,
and I imagine it's just human error, and especially that type of time frame, which leads me to believe, genuinely, we're partners. We've been partners a long time, and you're a straight shooter. How do you staff that? What's your plan for the fall?
So initially my plan has always been Swiss Army knife approach for my team. My team has grown 4 times over in 3 years. Now it's easy to grow 4 times over when you're like a 2-3 person team.
I can relate to that. Yeah, I can relate to that.
We're about 20 today, and I've always tried to, whether it's a sales rep or an internal operations person, I've tried to cross train those people to be prepared for the busy seasons and the fluctuations in business, which is synonymous with group benefits and individual. But this year, as an example, if we enrolled 4,000 people manually for 1/1/25, I'm currently sitting on projections that it could be 20,000 for 1/1/26. That's great news. I'm pumped about that. But Swiss Army knives, I don't think solve that problem. So right now we're in May, and I'm working with other leaders across the company to determine 1099 shared labor, staffing up, outsourcing, shared across divisions. I think it's going to be components of all those things. I think the planning for it, last year I was planning for this in September and August, and it's May.
Right.
I suppose I'm proud of myself for that, but it's out of necessity that there's multiple leaders involved, and we've got to get way out ahead of this thing because it really is snowballed quite a bit. And while the carriers in the market, Ambetter and Blues and they're embracing ICHRA, I'm using air quotes that you can't see. Embracing is one thing when you say it. I think we're years away from
feeds.
Yeah. Now I say that there's a few, they're getting there. I think there's a handful that'll have feeds with some of the platforms we use, and that'll be great, but it'll be 5 of 400, right? And there's really no way for me to tell. Again, if we get a case with a USI broker out of Nashville with employees in 13 states, that could span 75 carriers. I'm glad we have 5 that are on a feed, but that's
Yeah.
70 other carriers that we got to do the manual data on. So it's just, we got a ways to go there.
2 questions that arise from that. One, do you believe you know the landscape? We had an agent who called you, who you guys helped understand ICHRA in the fall, and he called Miles. For those who are listening, Miles is our rep. We work a lot with the Cason Group. And he said, hey, we're ready to go. And he had called it like mid-November. And Miles, unfortunately, was like, I'm so sorry. We don't have any space to enroll the case. And that's typical because, we had given him the time frames. He totally understood. He utilized eHealth to help him enroll that case. Do you know of all the players who can help insurance agents enroll this stuff? Are you guys just on one hand? I mean, I can't imagine. There's not that many people with the expertise who can do this kind of work, right, Brian? I mean, handle the volume.
I admittedly would probably be speaking out of my depth a little bit, but yeah. I'm not aware of a ton of organizations like us. Now, there are enrollment firms, right? And there are colonials out there, but to my knowledge, not a ton that have the enrollment volume and expertise and communication strategy married with the individual medical components, which we'll have. I mean, I've been in conversations with our director of benefits education in the past 30 days on planning. We'll have 25, maybe 50, depending on where we land our projections, 25, maybe 50 ICHRA specific enrollment consultants for 1/1/26 that, sort of understand what's being offered to these groups and can help the employees navigate it. Because it's different than just helping a person choose an individual plan.
100%.
A little bit. So, yeah, I mean, there's a couple folks out there that I've run across, but not a ton.
Wow, what an amazing opportunity. And do you have insurance agents? I know you guys call them brokers. We call them agents here in Michigan. But do you have agents who will enroll a case themselves, but also lean on you guys for other groups? Or for the most part, do agents go, case groups are enrollment, that's how we're going to do it? Or is it a mixed bag a little bit?
I'd say for the most part, it's one or the other. We certainly would serve brokers in more than this, but I'm going to say 2 capacities. One, we're a traditional GA, which a component of that is education and training. So we work with a handful of agents. They want to be I'm going to call it the premier broker. So they communicate to the group and they enroll the individual policies because they're versed in group and individual. And we've helped them become versed in ICHRA, educational content, understanding of compliance, whatever components they need help with. That's a small percentage. The bulk of it is they outsource everything to us, to and include like being on the calls with the group and doing a lot of the communication, but definitely the enrollment support and the keying of the apps. And I think a lot of that is driven by the fact that, may have said this originally, our average case size eligible lives for 1/1/25, I think it was about 185, 200 eligible employees, which is way up. It's ticking up. 2021, it would have been 15 lives, right? The projected eligible life count for 1/1/26 is 400.
Oh, wow.
I say that we are more and more working with, call it the mid-market broker, ALE space, and they're a solutions-based broker from my perspective who are going to lean on different folks to do certain things. And so they bring us in as their ICHRA education and enrollment firm. They're the quarterback, right? They're the relationship manager, got their consulting fee, and we work in conjunction with them to deliver, hopefully, a really good product to a large group. And that I've seen that's our experience, but I saw that as well at this conference where they're reporting on national trend data. Adoption of ICHRA as a whole is up 30% year over year, but it's up 84% year over year in the ALE space. So the adoption is, 3x up in the mid to large group space. Yeah.
Shouldn't really shock us, right? We all live these dreams of, I certainly don't know in your markets in the Southeast, but everyone's dealing with these huge increases. So that you answered that question for us. Obviously, you guys are projecting bigger groups, but take us back to your roots. In our first conversation and in podcasts in the past, the reason why you guys kind of fell into ICHRA because ICHRA in South Carolina made sense, and your partner, Blues of South Carolina, created their own ICHRA platform. So oddly enough, you do a lot of small group in your home state. Where I want to go with that is you were mentioning the carriers. Not a lot of them are connected, and maybe a few are, but here in Michigan, Priority Health and Blue Cross have both started talking about to their agent councils. Priority Health has actually announced it at agent events that they have ICHRA on the dashboard. So I wanted to ask, because you have an experience with your home state of a carrier actually creating its own ICHRA platform. Do you see that as a trend? Carriers going, here's our ICHRA platform, so the group just gets all Priority Health products, for example?
I haven't seen it as a trend. I know that Blue Cross of South Carolina has certainly been pushing their product heavily. I know they've been talking to a lot of the other Blues plans in states to push that product.
Okay.
Listen, I mean, I don't know if it's a trend, and I could get in trouble for speaking.
Yeah, no, that's okay. No, that's okay.
No, I
It's
will.
okay.
I mean, carrier partners are super important to us, right? We don't exist without carrier partnerships. But I would also say ICHRA law and the guidelines from the IRS dictate that if an employee is going to be offered an ICHRA on a tech platform, they have to be able to be offered all plans and options in their area. So if you offer a carrier specific solution, my perspective is technically it's non-compliant.
No kidding. Wow.
You can put some asterisks on there and some disclaimers and
we're not
package it up. You get what I'm saying? And let's be real here. I'm happy for a carrier to hear this. Carriers aren't exactly nimble and quick to market. So you got a bunch of tech companies out there that have built platforms 50 plus platforms in the market who are, I think, light years ahead of the carriers. So the carriers that I see doing it are playing catch up, and they're far behind, and they're not exactly leading tech carriers. I mean, right? I mean, you work with carriers. They're not exactly innovative.
Wow, Brian, you've learned a ton.
If any carriers listen to your podcast, so maybe nix my commentary.
Well, then we can side.
I'm teasing. If anybody gets their feelings hurt, then they can just grow up.
Holy smokes, that was a lot of information. When the agents who are doing, let's say you have a 40-person group in Georgia, and you guys are like, hey, that insurance agent, they're usually going to enroll those 40 lives themselves, I would think now, right? Or maybe use another firm, but most of the time they're still in your quote unquote downline as an FMO, right? You've helped them develop the systems. Do you still help them quote the TPAs, Brian, or are you kind of making the connection? And give me some insight into that.
Yeah, we would absolutely still. I mean, again, that to me falls in the GA service model. And if we're working with a broker that works with us that they want to RFP it and submit it for, we're going to help to a degree get them through that process. But when it comes to sitting down with individual employees and manually keying all the apps, that's when there's really this sort of gray, frankly, a line in the sand that needs to be drawn where it's hey, we can't today, I don't think, do that level of work and make the same amount of money as we do in a sort of a GA arrangement where they run their business through us, but they do a lot of that work on their own in a normal circumstance. Does that make sense?
That does. It makes total sense. That's what I'm trying to ask the nuts and bolts of it. If and when you hook them up with Zizzle and they sell a case and they're utilizing Zizzle, it's important, a distinction to know that they can, if they want, your agents can add a administrative, a fee for them to set up the ICHRA, and Zizzle will pay that to the agent. But Cason Group does not earn an override like you would if you sell a Blue Cross plan. You guys don't earn overrides on the TPA fees at all. No. You guys earn money when you connect the agent to the TPA. And then when your downline agents actually write individual business, you make it as an FMO, right?
Correct. Or if they take the enrollment through us and we do the apps, then we're the broker of record on the apps.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And so we get the commissions. Now that could come across the wrong way to the wrong person. But what I've learned is, one, that's the payment we get for our services for enrollment support. Where oftentimes an enrollment firm might have to throw on a PEPM to be on site or do telephonic. We're using that commission earned as the broker of record to fund our enrollment support. And this is a significant component of it. I originally thought, man, your take commands and your remodels, who are other competitor vendors out there. Originally, I thought, man, if they're taking away the broker of record, that doesn't work well for the group broker. They're worried about losing their relationship. But the fact of the matter is, Dom, like if it's a group broker and they're not the broker of record, in order to like be able to service the individual member, you have to be the broker of
Agent
record.
record.
So if you did the work for the group broker and threw them on as a broker of record, but then they sent it to us to service the clientele, we actually, the individual carriers, they're not gonna let us do it. Like where our hands are tied, right? And we oftentimes need to be working through issues on the employee's behalf. And as the broker of record, it gives you a lot more ability to assist on the service side. So I would make that argument that it's almost, in my learnings, it is pretty necessary for the vendor or the partner to be the broker of record on all the individual policies to make sure they can handle the service side of things too. It's not just about making money and trying to steal the relationship from the group broker.
No, you're not trying to do that at all. And
No,
it's just not how you guys have been set up for 30 years. It's just never been who you are at the Cason Group, right? You're an agent servicing organization, just like Benefit Profiles is.
100%.
What do you say to the agent who's like, okay, so let me get this straight. So I set up an ICHRA, the DA, I help place, I could make a little admin on that. All the folks that come on in, those are quote unquote clients of the Cason Group. Do agents come to you and say, Brian, am I going to be obsolete here? Or do you see it if you look out crystal ball? I know you don't know, and you've been in this space now for 3 years, but do you see it as a way where agents will just have majority group business, but some will go ICHRA? Or do you think like this is a wave that's coming? What do you feel? And then how do you're at this conference. What are you hearing? What do you think? What's the predictions?
It's definitely a wave that's coming. I don't think it completely saturates the market. I think it's an arrow in the quiver, a tool in the belt, but I think it'll be more than people expect today. I think it could be 10% of the group benefits market share, 5%, which is a small percentage, but a very large number. If you look at the collective number of people in America that are on employer-sponsored plans, and a lot of that data got presented at this conference. I wish I could jam on it off the top of my head. It's they're big numbers.
Yeah.
And back to like part of your original question. Yeah, man, that's a question that gets brought up a lot in these circles is what's the place of the group broker in the future, and can they be cut out or obsolete? Certainly there's a danger of that, but I think for the group broker that's good at their job, I would say no, right? They're the one that should be bringing ICHRA to the table at renewal in conjunction with other plan options. They are the quarterback. They need to find a way to be relevant in this space, and there is a place for them at the table, and they do. The best ones are absolutely a part of it with us in the communication with the group, and the group should find value in that.
And they can take them back to the group market, Brian, if it's,
Yeah,
absolutely.
ICHRA could be a couple of things. It could be a place for traditional group to move to permanently in a more stable market. I've seen that over the years. First year is a heavy lift. Second and third year, it runs a lot smoother, and the renewal increases inside of the individual space, 20 million plus people on it. Their standard trend 3 to 6%, right? That's not what you see in the group space. So it could be a permanent thing, but it could also be a temporary off ramp for a group running hot, large claims. They can get out of that space for a little bit and then come back to it 2 years later when ASO level funded, self-funded will then take a look at it, right?
Right. At that point, your experience changes, people change. That's my thought too, what you just said. And it's obviously, it depends on group size and a lot of different factors, right?
Yeah.
Industry. So the one that we did, I didn't have anything to do with it, but one of our agents did this past fall was a very traditional group, tool and die shop in West Michigan. Yeah, they're already telling the agent, if we can go back to group, we want to go. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a profile of a group that would be a group. A group policy is better for those folks. But there's profiles for any side. Like someone asked us, me and Dean Ferris, someone asked us, like, what's the typical profile of a group that would go ICHRA? And pretty hard pressed. It's like asking someone, well, what's the profile for level funding? Is the group healthy?
Yeah.
For you, it's like, I mean, sure, cost could, one thing is your group costs are going up, but can you say, hey, it's more blue collar, it's more hospitality, you really can't, right? You see it from all
No.
different segments.
All different segments. I mean, there's probably a slightly higher percentage for like hospitality. I think you could lump in like, gosh, what would you call like kind of nurse staffing and like,
Yeah, like home health care or whatever. Yeah,
yeah, that kind of stuff, like
Yes.
where they've got large fluctuations in employee populations. Like I've seen that as a sort of an outlier, but yeah, that's across the board.
I know we need to land the plane here, but I want to ask you, are you also seeing in your markets, and again, you can remind us of your markets and where you're writing business. I think do want to make sure I ask you that, like how far out, we had talked about in the first podcast, how far out you're selling it. In other words, your footprint really is Southeast United States up to the Midwest. But you've written business in Texas, really across the country, right? Is where you guys are writing it now.
If you looked at a most recent map of Cason Group production, it would be the eastern half of the United States at this point, not just the Southeast. But ICHRA and our enrollment firm, I mean, we've enrolled cases in California.
Okay.
And if it's the right case, we would send people on site anywhere.
Okay.
To be clear.
It's a math problem, right?
Correct.
Are you seeing, thank you for clarifying that. Are you seeing in your markets, agents just foregoing ICHRA, foregoing group, and just, mainly below 50, just being like, that's it. We're not even doing group benefits. We're just breaking it up. I mean, so you work with individual agents, right? So
yeah, for sure, man. And especially in the environment that we've been in, really COVID and after, where American Rescue Plan Act did a lot of things to make ACA more accessible to a lot more people, enhance subsidies, right? Then the Inflation Reduction Act expanded American Rescue Plan Act through the end of this year. So the ACA market has doubled in 4 years, from 11 million, a little over 11 million, to like 24 million today. Now, a lot of that stuff is likely going to sunset at the end of this year. But to answer your question, like, yeah, for sure, man, because so many people can go get an affordable plan on their own and get a pretty handsome subsidy. You get an employer that either grosses up pay or just says, yeah, man, go get it on your own. Subsidies are great. You see that a lot in the small group space.
Yeah.
Again, some of that's going to go away.
So tell me more about that. I'm really happy you brought that up, because I saw that kind of, you just see, and I didn't dive into that. Do you believe those subsidies are going to sunset, some of those rich subsidies this fall?
Yeah, I do, man. I'm paying super close attention because that's fueled a lot of our growth as an FMO. I think we've grown personally in adding value, but we've had some significant market tailwinds here that have fueled that growth, right? They removed the 400% cap. There's a year-round SEP for people below the 150% poverty level. Like, that has fueled a crap ton of growth.
What's that look like, do you think, Brian? So if someone's getting a subsidy today, their costs are going up pretty significantly one way?
Yeah, 100%. That's the simple way to put it. And the problem with it is, I'll bet you that it would get extended if no action needed to be taken. The problem is it was written into the Inflation Reduction Act to run through 2025, and specific action has to be taken in order to extend it. And I don't think
there's no appetite, right? No appetite.
I don't think anybody's going to do it. Now, there's a bunch of stuff floating around trying to push the issue, but I'd be really surprised, man. And so right now there is this massive reconciliation bill in Congress right now,
which is tied to the Trump stuff, right? The big, beautiful bill.
That's correct. Yeah. So you got ICHRA stuff in there, you got ACA stuff in there, you got Medicare stuff in there, Medicaid stuff in there, and a bill. Who knows how many pages that bill is? I have no idea what's going to get pushed through here, but a lot of the stuff that affects our world is in there. One of the interesting things is, to bring it back to this conversation and to maybe wrap us up, ICHRA initially sort of launched in the first Trump administration, and it was passed as maybe not a law, but a temporary bill. Well, inside of the reconciliation bill today is a proposal to codify ICHRA to make it a permanent offering. That's a big deal. There's also a minor thing where they're trying to change the name of it from ICHRA to Choice. I suspect all those things go through. An additional component would be an enhanced tax credit to employers for offering ICHRA. All those things are tailwinds to ICHRA. The ACA stuff and enhanced tax subsidies going away, and a lot of other compliant type restrictions, I think are going to significantly shrink the sort of traditional Obamacare market by 25-30% over 2 years.
The individual market you're talking, not the ACA group, but you're talking individual market, right?
That's correct. Yeah. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
My hope is that, we can sort of weather that, I'm going to call it a storm, with our growth in ICHRA. And I feel that we can. But the growth that's occurred in individual ACA over the past 4 years through, I would say, a lot of predatory call center and falsified enrollments, that stuff I think is going to really get hemmed up, which as a taxpayer, you could argue that should happen. Now, it's been great for me running an FMO for the past couple of years. We've had explosive growth, but man, that stuff needs to happen.
Yeah. Okay, let's land the plane by just saying the Cason Group is clearly bullish and putting resources. I mean, your leadership, your board, president, owners are all in. They're green lighting you. They're not saying, Brian, slow down. They're like, let's go. The juice is worth the squeeze, obviously, right?
Yeah. I mean, to hammer that home, William well. You and I were on a call with him yesterday. You know that he's pretty hands-off, right? Very strategic and directional, and then divisional leaders are handling. I was just on a call with two of the other executive leaders at the company, or CFO, and then Eric Griffin, who's over the rest of the company.
Yeah.
Really. And William said, hey, ICHRA was a big topic in this 2-hour meeting. This is my previous meeting today. And he said, we need to be talking about ICHRA at this meeting every month for the remainder of the year. So it is
huge growth area,
cross-divisional thing. There's a lot of cross-pollination and planning between a lot of different leaders here. We're bullish on it, excited about it, and not just because it's a moneymaker, because it is a legitimate solution for our group brokers, and that's who we serve. And
you also have a heart to the Cason Group is about giving people opportunity to come work in a place to help them grow, right? And
thank you for that. Gosh, I'm doing a terrible job. If we have to hire 50 people to enroll apps in the fourth quarter, that's the platform. That's what we exist, man. You know that. We want to provide a platform for employees to serve, be challenged, and be a light in the marketplace. And what better way to do that than to come up with 50 jobs in the fourth quarter that we need help
for
with.
The audience. That is not lip service. Many of our audience who is going to listen to this knows you, Brian, met you, and knows William. That's not lip service. That's who the Cason Group is. They genuinely are. That's why they're a wonderful partner for BPI, because this expertise, just listen to this conversation, the expertise you're offering, Brian, to our audience and our agents in Michigan is incredible. The last thing I'll ask you before we get out of here is, you're talking to an insurance agent in Michigan, and they say, Brian, what if you're in my shoes? Let's just say it's a good insurance agent in this mid to they can do business in the small, mid, and large markets. They have a great practice. What do you say to get ready for this? Maybe 2 or 3. What's your pieces of advice for them to get ready for ICHRA?
It's honestly fairly simple. If you ask yourself the question, if you're a broker, do I feel confident in my ability to present ICHRA as an option to one of my groups? If your answer to that is no as a broker, and I've not been a group broker before, but if your answer to that is no, I would do some homework and probably not just read an article that helps you understand what the acronym stands for. It's probably run a quote against a group you have coming up for renewal and understand what that proposal looks like against the traditional group and be able to articulate it. And I'll raise my hand and say, I've not been at that granular level. Now, many members of my team do that day in and day out. But if I'm a group broker, then I would absolutely know how to position it either defensively or offensively and start taking business.
And so if they want to engage, this is the most important call to action. We're all salespeople here, right, Brian? If they want to engage, advice for engaging with the Cason Group team, if they want to quote, quite frankly.
Yeah. Reach out to you mentioned Miles by name. He's the current sort of local rep for the Michigan market. So any brokers in our footprint, reach out to their local sales rep. We've got an RFP process. We've got an internal staff that handle that soup to nuts. I've been building out an ICHRA team internally. We've got an ICHRA account executive internally, an ICHRA account service rep, and You could argue I need 5 more of those people tomorrow, but yeah, reach out to your rep and send us your RFP. And then that rep, when we get it back and take a look at it, they'll walk you through what you need to be looking at inside of the proposal, and then make tweaks as needed to determine the appropriate contribution strategy and to see if it makes sense, to potentially present to your group.
Yeah.
And I would also plug, specifically if it's a large group, you got to start looking at those things early.
Yes,
Like
sir.
we're looking at 1/1/26 groups today.
Right, because the reality is, as much as you want to take everybody, you guys are a enrollment firm, right? I mean, it is what it is. Even though you have a lot of people, if the cup gets full, it gets full, correct?
We'll have to say no, unfortunately. As much as the little bit of sales side in me, and certainly my sales team wants to be able to say yes to as much as we can, at some point you have to do some planning and staffing, and you got to say no to some last minute stuff. It's not ideal.
Yeah,
but
killed Miles last year to have to do that, but it was the right call, and the insurance agents understand it's a lot of work. And then I'll just say, if you guys want to meet Miles, anybody listening, by all means, just send me a note. And we work. It's very odd, Brian. It's been how many years since we've been friends, but we work so well together. It's such a great relationship, and I do really appreciate you taking the time. Our agents have really benefited from our relationship. I don't think you and I expected this when we first got together. Remember that? We thought we'd be, and we do FMO work here in Michigan, and we work with a lot of great agents who really enjoy the Cason Group. But this side of the business, it's enriched my relationship at BPI with my agents. And a lot of times we're just handing it right to the Cason Group and letting the experts do their thing. So reach out and we'll get it going. Brian, thank you so much, man. I hope to see you very soon, like face to face. It's not on the podcast, man.
Yeah, always a pleasure. It's going to be wake surfing or on a snowmobile, right?
That I would love it. I would love to get you up here. I think the first time we met was very cold out, but thanks for your time. Appreciate it very much.